What's up YouTube? It's Coach Cory, and today we are going to go over how to play the newest gem grab map, Sapphire Plains. It's a bit of a tricky map compared to other gem grab maps, so I wanted to go over it for you guys and give you my best tips and tricks. Alright, so let's get into it. Alright, so starting out, I want to go over where each role is going to be on the map, and then I'll go into tips for each role and just some general tips for Sapphire Plains. So for Sapphire Plains, the best team comps are going to consist of course, one gem grabber, but it's a little bit different in Sapphire Plains. You can have either two support brawlers or one support and one aggro. So your gem carrier is going to be, of course, in the middle. You're going to have one support brawler always on the left side, and then the only difference is you're going to have either your support or aggro on the right side, or if you have a thrower, they're going to be behind this middle wall, just basically staying there the whole time. Now, you may also be wondering, Cory, the map is actually not symmetrical, so what do I do if I'm on the other side of the map? Great question. It's actually the exact same. Okay, so now let's give some tips for each role and just some general tips as well. And let's start out with the gem carrier. Now, it's Sapphire Plains. Bo is going to be your best gem carrier by far. Bo with his star power. If you don't have his star power, I'm probably still recommending Bo just because his mines are also very useful on this map. But Crow would be a great option as a gem carrier as well. And a distant third as far as options goes would be Poco, and I'm really not going to recommend anyone else. Your other typical gem carriers might be like Pam or Jesse. I'm not going to recommend them on Sapphire Plains. Now, as a gem carrier, Sapphire Plains is definitely a really tricky map, as you have to be very careful not to get caught too far out in the open or too high up, as often you're not going to know exactly where enemies are. Even if you do have bow star power, there's still going to be enemies that can hit you outside of your visible range of seeing them. So you have to be very, very careful. And this is especially true at the start of the map, because no one really knows exactly where people are. There's a lot of people who are just blind firing, who are firing in places where people typically are, but they don't actually know if they're there. And this is definitely true at the start of games, and pretty much everyone, always at least one or two people, is firing down the middle trying to get that gem carrier at the start of the game. So as a gem carrier at the start of the game, be very careful not to go too high up too fast, as you are going to get hit really fast by a lot of different people who know there's probably someone there and you are there. So definitely be careful and not go too high up. Wait for the first 2 or 3 seconds maybe. Don't get those early hits, and then go up after they fire them and they're not really sure where you are again, but you know where they are, and you can start firing at them and then get maybe 1 or 2 gems. Another thing about Sapphire Plains is, as a gem carrier, I'm probably going to recommend not getting the gems on the enemy side of the map unless you kill the whole enemy team or their last person alive is really low health, as you never exactly know where everyone is, and it's really easy to get surprised. And if you lose those gems, well, that's the game, really. So you definitely have to be very careful not to do that. One really important tip as a bow with your star power on Sapphire Plains is try and give the vision from his star power to that right side brawler, to your support or aggro brawler on the right side of the map, as they're going to need it the most. Whoever's on the left side is probably a brawler that's a little bit spammy and can check for themselves for the most part, like a Ricochet or a Spike, who's able to check the grass pretty well. So you want to be supporting that right brawler a little bit more than the left brawler with your star power. The only exception to this would be if you have a Crow and a Ricochet on your team, as both of those brawlers are great at checking bushes. Honestly, my best tip for gem carriers on this map is to be extra cautious, especially on specifically Sapphire Plains, more so than any other gem grab map, as it's so easy to lose your gems if you go up too far, and there's just some enemy brawler who has their super that you don't think is in your range but really is, especially anything like a Ricochet, a Spike, a Tara, a Dynamite, a lot of brawlers that can kill you fairly easily and push you towards the enemy spawn or make it really hard for you to escape. You just have to be very, very careful on this map, as it's easy for people to surprise you even if you have Bo's star power. Now let's talk about Bo's mines. Bo's mines can be really useful on this map, as there's so many choke points, so you can throw them in places where people have to walk through them if they want to get through, which is obviously great, because then they either got to waste a bunch of time clearing your mines, or they're going to take damage and charge your next super as well, and even clear some of that grass, so it's harder for them to walk through without being noticed. So there's a lot of good places you can place Bo's mines. Don't place them out in the open unless it's a really desperate situation or you're protecting those gems. You're trying to make it hard for them to get that last gem or two, and you know they're right there. That's the only time I'm going to say it's okay to place it in the middle. Otherwise, place it in those choke points I was talking about, like the middle. That's the best one for the first throw of your mines. Place that there, because their gem carrier is going to be really stuck. Otherwise, he has to waste time, kill those mines, or he's going to take a bunch of damage, or he's going to be forced to the side or something like that, and you're going to have good shots from one of your enemy teammates hitting multiple people. And then possibly you might have someone who spawns, doesn't realize those mines are there, and then walks into them later. But after placing in the middle, you can place in one of the two choke points on the right or left. Just place it a little high up. Don't place it in the middle of the map. Place it a little bit higher, closer to their spawn in one of those choke points. Okay, now let's talk about the support brawlers. If Bo is the most important brawler on this map, Ricochet is easily the second most important, and I am definitely going to recommend to always have a Ricochet on your team on Sapphire Plains. I know that means there's not a lot of team comp variety on Sapphire Plains. You always want a Bo with star power, and just a Ricochet doesn't have to have star power, but always helpful. Those are going to be the best two brawlers on this map by far. Ricochet is just insanely good on this map because there's so many bounce shot opportunities. So he's just a really strong brawler on this map. Learn those bounce shots, and there's a lot of different ways you can use them, especially with his super. You can get some sweet cross-map snipes with his super. Maybe even see some in this video, I don't know. But Ricochet, really good. Now, if you don't have Ricochet, there are some other brawlers that are also good in a support role. And they're going to be some legendaries, like Crow and Spike are really good as support brawlers on this map. Not as good as Ricochet, but still really good. You can also use a Dynamite. Dynamite is also definitely good on this map, but he's not going to be someone you want on the left side. So what I'm going to recommend is, if you don't have any legendaries, use a Ricochet and Dynamite. You're going to want Bo, Ricochet, Dynamite, or Poco, Ricochet, Dynamite. Now, my main tip as a support brawler on the left side of the map is, first things first, you always want to be shooting the left side first. Make sure there's no one on your side. If there is, keep on them and make sure they're not advancing. After you do that, if there's either no one there, you kill that person, or they had to back up because you gave them too much damage, then you focus on the middle and help out your gem carrier. Otherwise, stick to the left side. Now, of course, if there's someone middle who's crashing both you and the gem carrier really hard, you can divert your attention to kill that person first and then go back to the left side. The other thing to keep in mind is, if there's an aggro brawler on your side of the map, you have to be very, very, very careful to make sure they do not advance on you. So even if there's someone going middle on you, you might want to stick on that aggro brawler to make sure they don't get in close, because once they do, it's going to be really hard to get rid of them. Okay, now let's talk about support brawlers on the right side of the map. If you're a Crow, or if you have a Ricochet on your team and you have someone else, you're going two support brawlers and you have the other one on the right side, like a Crow, a Spike, or a Dynamite who might be in the middle. Let's talk about those guys. So if you're the Dynamite in the middle, you just want to be making sure that no one is going past you on the right side. So this is where it's really important to have that Bo helping you out, because if you don't have that vision, it's going to be really hard sometimes to make sure no one is ever getting past you. And it's definitely important to make sure that doesn't happen, because if they do, well, as a thrower, it's going to be really hard to hit someone who's really point blank with you. You probably experienced this, so you're going to need help from your teammates. Otherwise, just use that wall and deal a ton of damage out, and be making sure, focusing on the right side first and then focusing on the middle. If you're a Crow, you're going to be on the right side as well. Just try to constantly poison people and then use that jump to jump in on a brawler like a Ricochet or a Dynamite who's giving your team a lot of trouble. Or maybe if you have a bunch of them low health, jump on that enemy gem carrier and take all of their gems. If you have a Spike, just make sure you're dealing constant damage and get value supers. People are also going to group up on this map, and you're going to be able to just preemptively fire in a lot of different places, but don't be using too many shots at once if you don't know where someone is. Only when you know where someone is and they're in your range, then you can do a lot of shots at once. Otherwise, don't do that. Now guys, there are other support brawlers like Brock and Colt or Barley, but I'm not going to recommend using them on this map. Brock and Colt, the range is just not really suited for this map. There's too many walls, too many angles. Ricochet is just a far better option than them. Barley just doesn't do enough damage. You could use him to mild effectiveness. He's going to be able to make sure people don't escape past him very far, but he's not going to be very punishing if they do. So Barley is probably the better of those three brawlers, but I still recommend the four brawlers I mentioned earlier: Ricochet, Crow, Spike, and Dynamite. Forgot it for a second, but those are the four I would really recommend as support brawlers. Okay, now let's talk about the aggro role. If you're an aggro brawler, you're going to be on the right side. And the three brawlers I'm really going to recommend, and I'm only going to recommend these three, is going to be Bull and Daryl. Those are my top two by far, the best two. Tara is not a distant third, but is third. There is a distant fourth, and that's going to be Shelly. You can use those four brawlers. I'm not really going to recommend Shelly, but the first three I will recommend, especially Daryl and Bull. Now, these guys are good on Snake Prayer, so maybe it's not surprising that they're also pretty good on Sapphire Plains. Sapphire Plains, you can definitely use them to good effectiveness as long as there's not a Ricochet on the aggro side of the map. If there's a Ricochet on the aggro side of the map, it's going to be really hard for them. Any decent Ricochet is probably going to be able to keep them pinned as long as they keep attacking that aggro brawler. Otherwise, you're going to need someone in your teammate to kill that Ricochet or keep them occupied while you advance. Otherwise, you're just going to take a ton of damage and feed that Ricochet his super. So if there's a Ricochet on your side of the map as an aggro, you might have to switch sides of the map. It's highly likely that you do, unless you have your super. If you have your super, you can use it to get close to the enemy and get in on the action and not have to avoid the Ricochet as much. So your main goal as an aggro brawler on this map is going to be sneaky. Now, if they have a bow with star power, this is going to be a little bit hard. So you're going to have to try and build up your super, and then when opportunity strikes, when you see some of them with low health and a really good place to super to them, maybe they're next to a wall so you can get to them really quickly, it's hard for them to escape. Or you see a gem carrier with low health and you can get right next to him. Those are all decent opportunities to use your super as an aggro brawler, so I would definitely take that opportunity to use it. And when I say aggro, I mean Bull and Daryl. If you're a Tara, you're going to have to play it a little bit differently. You can take on the Ricochet slightly better, but not that much more, as the Ricochet is still going to heavily outdamage you if they choose to. So I would not try to take on the Ricochet again either, but you can do it from the middle a little bit easier. You can get a lot of chip shots in, and that's what I'm going to recommend as a Tara. Try and get a bunch of chip shots in. If you can't surprise anyone, go for chip shots, build up your super that way, and then try and super their gem carrier or just multiple brawlers at once. That's really what you're going to try and do. As a Tara, build up that super and super their gem carrier or multiple people, get that kill, and you're going to be able to turn the tide of the game. At the least, even if you kill the gem carrier and you don't pick up their gems, you're going to have someone carrying their gems who's not really meant to. So that's better than nothing. Alright, that's it for my Sapphire Plains strategy guide. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of this map. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you later.